I went to visit my son-in-law, and then I saw my wife's car near his gate. Here's what I heard. My heart slammed against my rib cage the moment I recognized that midnight blue Lexus in Jason's driveway. It belonged in my own garage. My wife Sarah never missed work, and she never drove here. Fear coiled cold around my spine as I killed the engine and slipped from my truck, careful to keep my footsteps silent on the concrete. A distant street lamp cast long shadows, and through the half-open curtains I caught Sarah's voice, smooth, cruel, full of betrayal. Seconds later, Jason's low, triumphant laughter cut through the night air. The world I thought I knew shattered in that instant, and I pressed my ear to the glass, determined to capture every venomous word. I pressed my back flat against the cool brick wall, fingertips gripping the barrel-like shape of my phone as I hit record. Through the narrow gap in the curtains, the living room glowed amber, Sarah lounging on the couch like a queen surveying conquered territory. Jason leaned against the bookshelf, arms folded, the smug curve of his lips illuminated by the lamplight. "She's so trusting, isn't she?" Jason murmured, voice slick with satisfaction. 2 years of playing the devoted wife, and he still doesn't suspect a thing. Sarah chuckled, the sound hollow and cruel. She toyed with a strand of her hair, letting the lamplight dance on its silky brown sheen. "Michael would defend me with his last breath. He's built his whole empire on that trust." A pang of betrayal hit me harder than any physical blow. Michael, no, I thought, swallowed the shock. This was my name too, Michael Andrews. 25 years of building our construction business, 25 years of loyalty, only to realize I'd been living inside a carefully constructed lie. Jason's voice dropped to a whisper, but I caught every calculated word. By June, the divorce will be final. His assets, $20 million easy. Rental properties, the vacation cabin, the investment portfolio. Sarah will walk away with half-plus spousal support for life. Sarah sighed as if dreaming aloud. And then I'll finally be free. Free to do whatever I want, with whoever I want. She paused, fingers grazing the edge of a legal folder on the coffee table. This folder has every deed, every bank statement. I just have to file the papers. My hand shook, but I held the phone steady. I had to know more. I stepped closer to the window, careful not to crunch the gravel beneath my boots, and Jason turned his head as if sensing movement. "Did you hear that?" Sarah asked, unease creeping into her tone. "Probably just a cat," Jason replied easily, but I knew the lie. I could see his eyes flicker toward the curtains. "Don't worry, Sarah. He's too busy to notice." Sarah's laugh was soft, but when it turned brittle, I felt it in my bones. "You really think he won't catch on?" Jason straightened, adopting that polished lawyer posture I'd come to loathe. "He can't. Not until it's too late." An icy determination settled over me. They thought they were safe in their conspiracy, but I was 2 steps ahead. I inched back, heart hammering, and slipped out of sight. On the drive home, dawn was still hours away, but the sky eased from purple to steel blue as streetlights blinked off one by one. I kept the engine idling, staring at the profile of our house. Its tall columns, the fountain I'd commissioned for our 20th anniversary. Everything rang hollow now. Inside, I dropped into the recliner Sarah always complained was too bulky for taste. I let the memories flood in our wedding night when she danced under crystal chandeliers and told me I was her miracle. The day Anna was born, when Sarah cradled our daughter with eyes full of wonder. The nights we sat on this very couch planning a future I'd thought we shared. But tonight, those memories were weapons they'd wielded against me. I replayed their voices in my mind, and the finality of their betrayal burned hotter than grief. I reached for my phone and hit stop. 43 minutes of audio evidence lay in my voice memo, proof that my wife and son-in-law had been plotting my financial ruin. It felt like clutching a lifeline in a sea of lies. I told myself I'd use this recording to defend everything I'd built. But beneath that resolve was a raw, aching question. Where did I go wrong? My reflection in the dark window looked back at me, weary but unbroken. Tomorrow I'd turn this devastation into strategy. Tonight I would mourn what was lost, and then I would fight. And then I didn't sleep. Every time my eyelids fluttered shut, I heard Sarah's laughter echo off the walls of the very home I'd built for our family. By 3:00 a.m., I was back in my office laptop, glowing like a beacon in the dark. I opened the audio file, 43 minutes of cold-blooded conspiracy, and listened to Sarah and Jason dissect my life as though it were a business venture, not a marriage of 25 years. My knuckles whitened on the steering wheel, memories colliding with betrayal. When dawn's pale light seeped through the blinds, I dialed Marcus, my accountant and oldest friend. "It's Michael," I said, voice raw. "We need to talk offshore accounts, asset protection, everything." His usual calm crackled through the line. "Michael, it's early. I'll be at your office in 20 minutes, I said, without waiting for his reply. I ended the call and hurried to change into a crisp navy suit, the same one I'd worn the day we landed the Morrison Municipal Center contract. I needed to look like the man I once was, confident, unflappable, unafraid. At Marcus's sleek downtown office, I dumped the coffee I'd carried in from home onto the desk. He raised an eyebrow. "Rough night," I nodded. "My wife and son-in-law plotted my divorce and asset seizure. I have it on tape." Marcus paled, then recovered. "Show me." I handed him my phone. He pressed play and leaned forward, eyebrows knitting as Sarah's voice filled the room. Her words were surgical, each phrase calculated to cut deeper than any knife. When the recording ended, Marcus looked at me with a mixture of respect and sorrow. "They underestimated you," he said. "But now you're exposed. We'll lock down everything offshore. Trusts, separate holdings, impenetrable structures. Legally bulletproof." Relief and rage warred inside me. Relief that justice might still be possible. Rage that someone I loved had used my trust as a weapon. I met Marcus's steady gaze. "Do it." By mid-morning, I returned home to find the bank had already frozen our joint accounts. That first declined transaction came at 10:47 a.m., Sarah's lunch at the country club. Text messages bloomed on my phone. "Michael, my card was declined." Embarrassing. "Please call the bank. They said joint security hold." "What's happening?" I didn't respond. Instead, I watched the sun carve golden stripes across our living room floor, the same room Sarah had mocked as she planned my ruin. I felt the tide of power shift beneath my feet. While the financial world scrambled to adjust, I organized my next move. I called Investigator Ramirez, my private detective, to check on Jason's office and social circles. I want everything: financial records, client complaints, ethical inquiries, anything that discredits him. "On it," Ramirez said. "Expect updates by afternoon." All the while my mind looped through Sarah's every calculated phrase. He won't suspect a thing. She was wrong. I did suspect. I recorded. I was ready. At noon, I stepped into our formal dining room for lunch, a lonely sandwich and a glass of water. Every clink of silverware against china felt absurd in this war zone of a house. My gaze drifted to the garden outside, where our daughter Anna used to play as a child. Now she was grown, and I feared firmly under Jason's influence. I pushed away from the table and went down to the workshop I'd built years ago. Saws, hammers, and measuring tapes lay waiting like old friends. I picked up a length of oak molding and ran my fingers along its smooth edge. Memories of building furniture for Emily's nursery came flooding back. Each nail driven by hope, each board cut with care. The same hands that shaped wood would now shape my defense. That afternoon, Ramirez called with his first report. Jason Thompson has 2 pending ethics complaints for mismanaging client funds. He settled out of court both times. His voice was a low hum behind the phone speaker. I've got statements from subcontractors who used client trust accounts as personal piggy banks. We can lever that. A grim satisfaction curled in my chest. They'd weaponized the law against me, so I'd weaponize it against them. Good work, I said. Keep digging. By 5:00 p.m., I'd assembled a mountain of evidence. Sarah's own texts, plotting the divorce timeline, Jason's compromised ethics record, financial transactions that painted him as untrustworthy. My war room, formerly my home office, looked like a prosecutor's desk in the courthouse. Late that evening, I heard the click of the front door. Sarah stepped inside her heels, barely making a sound. She paused in the foyer as though sensing the shift in energy. When she saw me in the dim light, her practiced mask slipped for a fraction of a second. "Michael," she said, voice hollow. What's going on?" I didn't rise. I stayed seated behind the desk, files spread like a deck of cards on its polished surface. "I know everything," I said quietly. "I heard you and Jason plotting in his living room at midnight." Her eyes flickered to the framed wedding photo behind me, our younger selves full of promise. "You shouldn't have been there," she whispered. "You weren't supposed to hear." "Save it," I cut in. I recorded every word. I dropped the phone onto the desk screen facing up. She glanced at it, realization dawning. "You'll never use that," she said, sounding more desperate than angry. I reached for the phone. My heart still thumped violently, but my voice was steady as I slid the recording across to her side of the desk. "I won't use it to humiliate you. I'll use it to protect what's mine." Her breath caught. She pressed her palm over her mouth as if to staunch an injury. The Sarah I once knew, the wife who had laughed at my jokes, supported my dreams, was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. "I don't want to fight," she said, tears glossing her eyes. I thought we could start over." "Too late for that," I replied softly. "You chose this." I turned and walked toward the French doors that led to the porch. The night was cool, a silvery hush settling over the yard. As I stepped outside, Sarah followed her silhouette, small and fragile. "I never stopped loving you," she whispered. I paused, hand on the doorframe, and looked back at her. The woman who'd once promised me forever was now pleading to salvage what remained. My chest felt heavy, burdened by grief and resolve. "I know," I said, voice breaking, "but love alone doesn't erase betrayal." I closed the door gently and walked down the path toward the fountain she once loved. Each step echoed in the quiet night, a reminder that I was forging a new path, one built on truth and integrity, not lies and manipulation. Behind me, through the window, I saw Sarah's face pressed against the glass, torn between regret and defiance. In that moment, I understood the true cost of their conspiracy. Not just the wealth they sought to seize, but the trust and love they destroyed. I turned my eyes to the fountain's gentle cascade, its water catching moonlight like scattered diamonds. Tomorrow, I would file the evidence. Tomorrow, I would show the world the depths of their deceit. But tonight, I allowed myself to feel the wound, to let the betrayal seep in fully before I steeled myself for the battle ahead. The next morning, sunlight spilled across my desk as I drafted the divorce petition and the supporting motion to freeze all remaining assets. My suit felt heavy, the fabric a reminder of more confident days, but I wore it anyway. I skimmed the final paragraph. Judge Hendricks would see in crisp legal prose how Sarah and Jason had conspired to strip me of everything I'd built. I clicked send to my attorney James Morrison and exhaled. "Consider it delivered?" James's voice crackled over the phone. "The clerk's office confirms receipt. We're scheduled for a hearing in 10 days. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. 10 days felt both interminable and too soon. My stomach churned thinking of Sarah's face when she learned the law would no longer protect her schemes. After the call, I stepped outside onto the back porch. The fountain's water glinted in morning light, each drop an echo of the lies I'd uncovered. My mind replayed Sarah's plea last night, "I never stopped loving you," and the sharp retort that followed, "Love alone doesn't erase betrayal." I inhaled deeply, tasting the cool spring air. I wasn't a part-time player in my own life anymore. I was taking control. I decided to see Anna before the courthouse drama began. She'd stayed with me last night, refusing to sleep at Jason's apartment an extra minute. I found her in the kitchen, nursing a mug of black coffee and reviewing notes on her laptop. Her green eyes, so like Sarah's in childhood, were now set in a fierce line of determination. "Morning, Dad," she said without looking up. "Did you see my voicemail?" I shook my head. "Not yet." She pressed play, and a clipped recording of Jason's voice filled the quiet room. "She's siding with him. We need to reinforce her belief that Dad's unstable." Anna's lips pressed thin. He actually did that. He recorded Sarah's plan and then tried to twist it into proof that Dad's paranoid. I leaned against the counter, heart heavy. "He underestimated you." She closed her eyes. "I can't call him. Not until I'm sure where my loyalties belong." I reached across to squeeze her shoulder. "Whatever you decide, I've got your back." She nodded, the conflict flickering in her gaze. "Just don't lose who you are." Her words stung, but I understood. In the whirlwind of legal maneuvers, I had to remember the man I was beyond the courtroom tactics. By mid-morning, I arrived at the county courthouse, a stately brick building where marble pillars met glass doors. James met me on the steps, briefcase in hand. He glanced at my charted timeline. "Sarah's camp filed to strike the asset freeze motion, claiming undue hardship," he said. "They want immediate release of funds for living expenses." I frowned. "They can't have it both ways, my money when it suits them and freeze it when it doesn't." James smiled thinly. "That's why we'll argue that unrestricted access now would allow them to siphon off assets before full discovery. I've prepared the witness affidavit from Marcus about the offshore structures you activated overnight." I nodded, feeling the familiar thrill of strategy. "Let's go make our case." In the courtroom, Judge Hendricks presided with her customary no-nonsense demeanor. Sarah sat at the plaintiff's table, flanked by Jason, whose sharp suit now looked as contrived as his empathy. Sarah's eyes found mine briefly, her practiced poise slipping into nervous tension. She fiddled with her pen. "Mr. Andrews," James began, "we maintain that the asset freeze is both necessary and lawful, given the clear evidence of conspiracy. My client faces imminent risk of substantial financial loss." He laid out the recorded transcript, calling the court's attention to Jason's admission of copying bank statements and deeds. Sarah's attorney, a young associate with overly polished arguments, objected. "Your Honor, My clients require funds for basic living, housing, food, legal fees. They cannot be financially immobilized prior to discovery. Judge Hendricks eyed him. Ms. Andrews, Mr. Thompson, do you have evidence that the funds in question are required for essential living expenses rather than for extrajudicial transfers? Sarah swallowed. Your Honor, we need to... Her voice caught. She glanced at Jason, whose lips pressed into a thin line. Jason cleared his throat. We have a joint line of credit that covers mortgage payments and daily living. I can produce the account statements. James seized on the hesitation. Your Honor, the line of credit is also included in the freeze order. The purpose is to prevent undue dissipation. My client is prepared to allow basic necessities through escrow, but not unfettered access. The judge consulted her notes. After a moment, she ruled, the asset freeze will remain in effect with an allowance of up to $5,000 per week for documented living expenses subject to review by the court. I expect parties to submit detailed expense reports. Hearing adjourned. A ripple of tension passed through the room. Sarah exhaled, relieved, but clearly rattled. Jason's jaw tightened as he packed his papers. I felt a rush of vindication our strategy had held. Later, outside the courthouse, Anna approached me. Dad, you were brilliant. She hesitated, then added softly, Please be careful. I'm worried about Mom. I wrapped an arm around her shoulders as we walked back to my car. I am worried, too. But her actions left me no choice. Anna glanced up at me, her eyes fierce. I know you love her, but loving yourself matters more. Her words settled over me like a benediction. I nodded, and loving you matters most. Back at home, I retreated to the workshop again, the scent of sawdust grounding me. I picked up a plane and began smoothing the surface of an oak board. The repetitive motion calmed my mind, but each stroke reminded me I would rebuild my life piece by piece, stronger and truer than before. As twilight fell, my phone buzzed with an email from Ramirez. 3 more subcontractors willing to testify about Jason's misuse of client funds. 2 neighbors who heard Sarah's midnight laughter. A city inspector who noticed irregular financial entries in permit documents. I sat at my desk, eyes tracing the lines of evidence accumulating like a dossier of truth. Sarah and Jason may have thought they could fracture my world, but every lie they told only fortified my resolve. I closed my eyes and pictured the day their conspiracy unraveled completely, when the full weight of their deceit, documented and undeniable, would deliver me from this betrayal. I opened my laptop and began typing an outline for my own testimony, memory by memory, moment by moment. I would tell the story of love twisted into strategy, of trust weaponized, and of how I refused to be its victim. Outside, the last light of day faded, and the fountain's steady flow whispered reassurance. In the heart of destruction, I had discovered a deeper truth. When love and loyalty are shattered, the path to redemption is built on unvarnished honesty and unbreakable integrity. And that was a future worth fighting for. Dawn hadn't broken before I was at my desk again, reviewing the final draft of my testimony. The courthouse loomed in my mind like a battlefield, one I was determined to win. I saved the document, closed my laptop, and slipped into jeans and an old leather jacket that smelled of oil and sawdust. I needed to feel grounded in who I was before I faced my betrayers again. Stepping outside, I found Anna on the porch, wrapped in a sweater, her breath misting in the morning chill. She didn't say good morning. Her eyes spoke the question. I nodded toward the driveway. Ready? She asked, voice small. I offered her a tired smile, more than ever. She slipped her hand into mine without waiting, and we walked to the car together. At the office, the air tasted of anticipation. James greeted us with a firm handshake and a nod at Ramirez's files spread across the conference table. "We'll start with the depositions today," James said. "Sarah's up first." My pulse quickened. It wasn't just legal maneuvers now, it was personal reckoning. Inside the deposition room, Sarah sat across from me, flanked by her new attorney. Her hair was pinned back, her expression practiced calm. I caught a flicker of recognition when our eyes met, as if she saw the accumulation of every lie I held in reserve. Ramirez presented the first exhibit, the audio recording. Sarah's lips parted, but she said nothing. Mrs. Andrews, James, began, voice measured. "Do you recall the evening of April 2nd when you and Mr. Thompson met in your daughter's house?" He slid the phone across the table. "Listen to this." Sarah's shoulders stiffened as her own voice spilled from the speaker, smooth, cruel. I saw her gaze flick to Jason's door, no doubt seeking reassurance that he hadn't recorded me lurking outside. Her attorney sputtered an objection, but the court reporter captured every syllable. Sarah pressed her fingers to the table's edge. After the playback, James asked softly, "Is that your voice, Mrs. Andrews?" Her voice quavered, betraying the composure she'd rehearsed all month. "Yes," she admitted, eyes dropping. "But I had no idea he would record it." I felt a hollow ache in my chest. Her perfunctory apology sounded like a confession without remorse. Yet I also saw regret flicker in her eyes, the first genuine emotion I'd witnessed since this nightmare began. Next, Ramirez called a subcontractor who described Jason's misuse of client trust funds. His voice was steady as he recounted how promised payments vanished. Jason shifted in his seat, brow furrowing as the testimony stacked proof upon proof. When the questioning turned to his ethics complaints, his defensive calm cracked. "Objection," his attorney barked. But Ramirez persisted, presenting emails from Jason's own office. The young lawyer glared at Ramirez and me. I wondered if he realized how thoroughly he'd been outmatched. By midday, we reconvened in James's office. Anna sat beside me, her notebook open, ready to support with any recollected incident. She reached out and squeezed my hand, her quiet presence a reminder of what truly mattered. I leaned forward. "They're rattled," I said. "We're doing the right thing." James nodded. "Tomorrow we handle your testimony. Rest tonight. Be ready to speak from the heart." I exhaled, the weight of evidence lifted slightly, but not the burden of betrayal. That evening home felt strange, empty, without the rattle of my workshop, the scent of fresh wood. Sarah's Lexus was gone from the driveway. She'd stayed at her sister's, no doubt injured pride in tow. I wandered to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of bourbon, the burn familiar and grounding. In the living room, I noticed our wedding portrait leaning slightly to the right, as though the wall itself recoiled from it. I straightened the frame and paused, tracing Sarah's younger face, radiant with promise. How did a marriage like that become a trial like this? Anna found me there, shoulders hunched. "Dad, I don't know what to do about Mom." She sat beside me. "I love her, but she hurt you." The guilt in her voice made my chest tighten. I put an arm around her. "You'll decide what you need. I'll support that." She nodded against my side, and I realized that our bond forged in trust would outlast any scheme they'd devised. Morning arrived too soon. In the sterile courthouse hallway, I mentally rehearsed my opening lines. Anna met me at the door, giving me a small, brave smile. "You got this." I hugged her briefly before walking into the courtroom. Judge Hendricks presided again, her gaze steady. I took the stand and felt the familiar hum of expectation. When I began recounting my side of the story, how I discovered Sarah's betrayal, how I uncovered the offshore shields, how I watched my daughter's smile fade as her trust wavered, I spoke not just as a plaintiff, but as a man stripped bare by deceit. Sarah watched every word, her expression hollow. Jason sat behind her shoulders, slumped as if weighed down by his own conscience. When I reached the moment I realized our daughter was caught between us, my voice cracked. Anna's eyes met mine, shining with tears, and I fought to steady my breath. I wasn't a cold businessman. I was a husband and father who had invested everything in this family. My tears were evidence of more than pain, they were proof of love. In recess, Sarah approached the bench. I saw her lips move apology, excuse, but the judge interrupted. "Mrs. Andrews, save your testimony for cross-examination." Sarah nodded, face pale, and returned to her seat. Back in chambers, James laid a hand on my shoulder. "You did well, honest and human." I nodded, relief washing through me. The hardest part was over. Now it was time to see what came next. Weeks passed in a blur of motions, counterclaims, and negotiations. At home, I focused on steady routines, breaking ground on a new project, teaching Anna to refinish an old coffee table in the workshop. Each nail I hammered, each plank I sanded, felt like an affirmation I could rebuild trust, even if not with Sarah. Then came the settlement meeting. In a downtown conference room, Linda Hawthorne stared at the figures on the spreadsheet. Sarah sat beside her, shoulders hunched. Jason hovered at the edge, fidgeting with his tie. I spread the terms before them: full ownership of the business, sole possession of the house, an equitable but firm division of personal assets. No spousal support to Sarah. Her prenup limited her to a fixed amount and a clause that barred Jason from any future involvement with the company. Silence stretched until Sarah's voice trembled. "Please, just give me something." Her eyes glistened. I met her gaze, remembering the woman she'd once been. "I gave you everything I could while I believed you loved me," I said softly. "This is all I can give now." Jason glanced down, lips pressed. His dream of financial windfall evaporated in that moment. When the papers were signed, I extended a hand to Anna. She squeezed it, relief flooding both of us. As Sarah gathered her belongings, she paused at the door, her eyes locked on mine for a heartbeat. No words passed, none were needed. The chapter was closed. Stepping outside into the crisp evening air, Anna and I walked to the truck together. She slipped her hand into mine, a quiet promise of new beginnings. I climbed into the driver's seat, settled the weight of the day on my shoulders, and started the engine. The headlights swept across the road ahead, illuminating the path forward, one built on truth, strengthened by integrity, and guided by the unbreakable bond between a father and his daughter. Early the next morning, the air felt different, crisper, as if the world itself had exhaled in relief. I sat at the kitchen table, nursing a cup of black coffee that tasted like both victory and loss. The house was quiet. Anna was still asleep in the guest room, and my workshop downstairs beckoned like a sanctuary. The divorce decree was final, now legal battles behind me. But the real work lay ahead, rebuilding a life and a business fractured by betrayal. I rose and padded barefoot across the hardwood floors, stopping at the family photo wall. There, in frames of oak and cherry, were the versions of us I'd once believed in. Sarah's smile in Cabo, Anna's graduation cap, our wedding day under autumn leaves. I reached out and touched the glass closest to me, the picture of Anna's first day of school. My heart squeezed. That was yesterday's world. Today demanded a new story. In the workshop, the familiar scent of pine and varnish greeted me. The table saw stood silent, waiting for my return. I ran my hand along the edge of the maple wood I'd been flattening yesterday. I hadn't touched a power tool since the settlement, but today I planned to break that silence. I loaded the board into the planer and guided it through the blades 1, 2, 3 passes until the surface was as smooth as river-worn stone. The rhythmic hum of machinery threaded through my thoughts, reminding me that creation could heal what destruction had broken. A knock on the doorframe startled me. Anna stood there, hair-tousled eyes bright with purpose. "Morning," she said softly. "I thought you might need company." I smiled and nodded. She stepped in and closed the door behind her. "I've been thinking," she began, tracing a line in the wood dust on the bench. "You said you wanted to start fresh. Maybe we could open a small furniture studio together, something that honors what you've always loved." Her voice carried both optimism and caution, as though she didn't want to jinx anything. I set the planer aside and turned to face her. "A studio? You mean with your help?" She nodded. "I know woodworking, but I also want to learn. And I think people would love a father-daughter line of handcrafted pieces." Her enthusiasm was contagious. For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of excitement for the future, not just the past. We spent the morning sketching designs on a scrap-sheet coffee tables with inlaid patterns, rocking chairs with gently curved backs, heirloom boxes for keepsakes. Dialogue flowed easily between us, weaving business ideas with memories of Anna's childhood projects, her clay sculptures, her scrapbooks, her knack for turning simple materials into art. Each design felt like a bridge between our broken history and the promise of something new. When lunch rolled around, we carried our sketches to the dining table, where a single yellow rose, Anna's gift, stood in a vase. We shared sandwiches and talked logistics, sourcing reclaimed wood, setting up a website, marketing through local fairs. Anna's phone buzzed with messages from friends offering encouragement. I texted James to let him know about our new venture. His reply came immediately. "Congratulations. Let me know if you need any legal paperwork." A small victory smile creased my face. That afternoon, I headed to the city permit office to secure a small studio space in the historic district. The clerk raised an eyebrow at my application. "Furniture studio, father and daughter partnership," then stamped it with a reassuring hum of the approval machine. As I walked back to my truck permit in hand, I felt the weight of that stamp settle on my shoulders like a benediction. Back home, I found Sarah's number in my contacts and stared at it on my phone screen. A flicker of old habit tempted me to call to demand the reasons behind her betrayal or to recapture the ghost of our love, but I pressed delete instead. Whatever remained of our past had no place in this new chapter. I pocketed the phone and found Anna in the workshop, tracing her finger along a cabinet I'd begun refurbishing. We worked side by side until the sun dipped low, painting the sky in rose and gold. As dusk settled, we cleaned the tools and locked up the shop. On the porch, we paused to watch the fountain's steady flow, its water catching the last light like scattered jewels. "You know," Anna said, leaning against my shoulder, "I'm proud of you." Her voice, both gentle and strong, felt like a healing balm. I wrapped an arm around her and inhaled the evening air. "I'm proud of us," I replied, "and grateful." That night I slept with dreams of dovetail joints and varnished finishes of laughter in this house, not lies. When I awoke, I found an envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside was a check from one of my long-standing clients, an order for custom cabinetry they needed by month's end. A note read, "Your integrity and craftsmanship are unmatched. Can't wait to see what you and Anna create." My throat tightened at the reminder that reputation once tarnished by falsehood could be polished anew by honesty. Over the next week, the studio came alive. We painted walls in soft gray, installed workbenches, and tacked our initial sketches to a corkboard. Anna set up a simple point-of-sale system online while I organized tools and measured cuts. Our conversations now brimmed with possibility instead of pain. Neighbors dropped by with encouragement, an elderly widow who reminisced about teaching her granddaughter crafts, a young couple seeking an oak dining table. I welcomed each inquiry with gratitude, knowing these were the seeds of our rebirth. One afternoon, Jason's car rolled past the workshop window. I paused, heart hitching, but he drove on without glancing our way. Whatever remained of his and Sarah's story was theirs to bear. Ours had moved forward. As evening fell on the 7th day of our new venture, Anna and I stood outside, surveying the soft glow within the workshop. The smell of fresh-cut pine still hung in the air, mingled with the faint tang of metal from the tools. Anna turned to me, eyes shining. "Ready to welcome our first clients?" she asked. I took a deep breath, chest swelling with emotion. "More than ever," I said, slipping my arm around her shoulders. Together we stepped into the light, the door closing gently behind us on one life and swinging wide open on another. The morning sunlight filtered through the large front windows of our new workshop as I unlocked the door, the latch clicking like the starting gun of a race. Anna was already there, arranging sample pieces for our first walk-in customers, a married couple who'd commissioned a live-edge dining table. Her excitement was contagious. She hummed softly as she aligned the wood grains under the soft lamps we'd hung just hours before. I inhaled the familiar scent of oak and varnish, grateful that our dreams were unfolding at last. Our first visitors arrived shortly after 9. The young couple stepped inside, eyes widening at the sight of piles of reclaimed wood and half-finished prototypes. "This place is incredible," the woman said, her voice echoing gently in the open space. I greeted them with a warm smile and introduced Anna. "We're so glad you came by," I said. "Let us show you what we have." As I led them to the largest slab of maple, its live edge polished and ready, Anna described our design vision: sturdy legs, inspired by mid-century modern lines, a tabletop thick enough to feel substantial without overwhelming their space. The man ran his hand along the edge, nodding slowly. "It's beautiful. Feels alive." His partner glanced at Anna with admiration. "Your father's craftsmanship is amazing." I felt a swell of pride and watched Anna's cheeks color. We spent nearly an hour fine-tuning dimensions, discussing finishes, and working out delivery schedules. By the time they left with the deposit check in hand, my chest felt tight with relief. Our reputation was beginning brick by brick or plank by plank. As we began clearing the demo table, a rustle of papers in my jacket pocket reminded me of last week's courier delivery, a notice from Sarah's attorney outlining a challenge to our shared custody plan for Anna. I slipped the envelope onto the workbench and tried not to let the anxiety undercut our momentum. Anna noticed it too. "What's that?" she asked quietly, picking up the envelope. "Just paperwork," I said, forcing a casual tone. "Nothing immediate." She studied my face, searching for reassurance. I laid a hand on her shoulder. "Trust me, we'll handle it." She nodded, but I could tell she didn't fully believe me. The gravity of Sarah's legal maneuver loomed over us, even as we celebrated our first business win. Later that afternoon, after cutting and planing another batch of walnut boards, I stepped outside to the back porch to clear my head. Anna followed, water bottle in hand. The sky was a bright, unblemished blue, and the fountain's gentle cascade rose and fell like a heartbeat. I exhaled a long breath, I didn't want you to see that envelope, I admitted. She traced a finger along the carved rim of the porch column. I know, but what does it mean? Her question hung between us like a thundercloud. I remained silent for a moment, choosing my words. Sarah's attorney is claiming that because I'm not home every night, joint custody isn't in her best interest. They want to modify our arrangement. Anna's brow furrowed. They're attacking our family again. She sounded weary, her voice low. Just as we're getting this off the ground. I nodded. I know it's unfair, but we'll fight it. The judge will see that this work, it's stabilizing for both of us. She looked unconvinced. Promise me we'll keep moving forward no matter what. I pulled her into a hug. Always. That afternoon we resumed work. I focused on the tactile satisfaction of measuring and cutting, letting the physical labor steady my thoughts. Each careful saw stroke was a reminder that creation is the antidote to destruction. Anna sanded curved chair legs with meticulous care, her tongue peeking out in concentration. Occasionally she'd glance up a silent check that I was still beside her. I returned her smile with a nod. As the shadows lengthened, a soft knock echoed through the workshop. I turned to see Sarah standing in the doorway, her expression unreadable. She wore the same tailored coat she'd donned for depositions. Ultimately, our conflict had spilled into the courtroom again this morning, with James arguing against her motion to relocate Anna out of state. I hadn't expected to see her here in the heart of my new life. "Michael," she said, voice steady but carrying an undertone of vulnerability. "We need to talk." I paused, a chisel in hand, and measured her silently. Anna stepped behind me, arms crossed. "What are you doing here?" I asked, careful not to let my voice betray anger. Sarah's gaze flicked to Anna, then back to me. "I wanted to see the studio," she admitted. I saw online that you and Anna opened this place." She shifted uncomfortably. "I'm sorry for everything. I know I hurt you." I set down the chisel and crossed my arms. "What do you want, Sarah?" My tone was cool. Her apology was too little too late. Her eyes glistened. I miss Anna. And I read your schedule. You're often here late or away on site visits. You're building something important. I wanted to understand." She paused, swallowing. "I don't expect forgiveness." Anna stepped forward, protective. "Mom, this is our place. You're welcome to visit, but you can't use it to stir things up legally." Sarah's face fell. "I wouldn't do that." She turned to me. "Michael, can we set aside our conflict for a moment? If this workshop helps Anna find stability, I want to support that." Her words hung in the dusty afternoon light, both honest and impossible to parse. Silence stretched. I glanced at Anna, her posture unmoving, her eyes fierce. She shook her head slowly. "Mom, you lost that chance." Her voice was soft but firm. Sarah's lip quivered. She exhaled and ran a hand through her hair. "I understand." Then more quietly, "I really am sorry." Without another word, she turned and left. The door swung closed behind her with a hollow thud. Anna and I exchanged a look heavy with relief and wounded disbelief. I placed a hand on Anna's shoulder. "You did great." She bit her lip, gathering composure. I wish things were different." I wrapped an arm around her. "Me too." That evening, as the studio lights dimmed and we locked up, I felt the weight of Sarah's visit settling in my chest. She hadn't challenged me legally this afternoon, but her presence reminded me that she was still a force in our lives. one I couldn't ignore even as I poured myself into carving tables and chairs. Back at home, I laid out the photos of our clients' pieces on the dining table. The walnut coffee table needed brass inlays. The maple dining set required custom finish samples. Each choice felt meaningful, a testament to creation triumphing over destruction. Yet in the background of my mind, Sarah's words lingered. If this workshop helps Anna find stability, I want to support that. I realized then that forging ahead didn't mean shutting her out entirely. It meant defining clear boundaries. I drafted an email to James. Let Sarah know she may visit the workshop by appointment only supervised by me or Anna. No legal discussions on premises. As I hit send, I felt a sense of resolve wash over me. Our sanctuary wouldn't become another battlefield. Tomorrow, when the courthouse doors opened again, I'd stand firm for our daughter and for the life we were building together, one handcrafted piece at a time. The dawn light was just beginning to tinge the east windows when I found Anna at the kitchen table reviewing her notes for this afternoon's custody hearing. Her face was pale but determined. She'd insisted on reading her own statement to the judge. I poured 2 cups of coffee and set one in front of her. She offered a small, grateful smile. "Thanks, Dad," she said, voice husky with nerves. I sat across from her. The mug felt warm in my hand, but couldn't soothe the tension I felt coiling in my chest. "You ready for today?" She took a breath and nodded. "More or less. I just want to make sure the judge sees I'm stable here with you in the workshop." She tapped the printed pages. "This place, it's given me purpose. I want him to understand that." I reached over and squeezed her hand. "He will. You're strong and you're honest." At 10 o'clock, James drove us to the county courthouse. The stately facade looked less daunting than the last time, but my stomach churned at the thought of facing Sarah's attorney again. We entered the bright atrium, the marble floors echoing our footsteps. Anna clutched her statement folder like a lifeline. In the courtroom, Judge Hendricks presided once more. Sarah sat with her lawyer in the front row, her posture stiff, eyes fixed on her phone. Jason was absent. He'd been served a subpoena for another ethics hearing in the state bar, so he'd sent his apologies. James stepped forward. "Your Honor, today's matter concerns the modification of joint custody. Ms. Andrews petitioned for a change in primary residence due to Mr. Andrews's alleged work commitments." Sarah's attorney rose. "Your Honor, my client's concern is that Mr. Andrews's long hours at the workshop and frequent site visits compromise our daughter's stability. We propose primary custody be granted to Ms. Andrews." My heart pounded. I exchanged a glance with Anna, whose eyes held fierce resolve. James gestured for me to take the stand. My legs felt like lead as I walked to the witness box. Judge Hendricks tilted her head. "Mr. Andrews, please explain your work schedule and how you ensure Ms. Carson's welfare." I cleared my throat, forcing calm. "Your Honor, I work at the workshop most days, but I'm home by 6 each evening. Weekends I dedicate entirely to Anna. We co-manage the studio together. She's not left alone. Our schedules are synchronized to prioritize her education and emotional well-being." I saw the judge's pen pause over her notes. I continued. "My business has afforded Anna an opportunity to explore her strengths and maintain stability after the turmoil of recent months. The workshop is both home and classroom for us." Sarah's attorney shifted. "Mr. Andrews, can you guarantee you'll maintain this schedule indefinitely given the demands of your growing business?" I met his gaze. "Yes. I've hired help for production and deliveries. My priority is Anna." The words felt true, and I sensed the courtroom shift. Next, Anna stood. She clutched her folder, but didn't waver. "Your Honor, I appreciate my mother's concern. but my life here is stable. I wake up in my own bed, work on projects with my dad, and attend virtual classes from this workshop. I feel safe and supported." She paused, eyes glistening. "I believe staying here is best for me." Her honesty echoed in the room. Judge Hendricks nodded, inviting Sarah's cross-examination. Sarah rose, voice measured. "Anna, do you think your father's work is more important than your needs?" Anna's gaze didn't flinch. "No. He balances both. He drives me to the studio in the morning, picks me up for lunch, and helps with homework at night." Sarah looked taken aback. Her attempt to paint me as neglectful had failed. I saw regret flicker in her eyes, as though she realized she'd misjudged her own daughter's allegiance. When the judge excused us, I exhaled relief, flooding my veins. Anna leaned into me. "That went well." "It did," I said softly, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "You were amazing." Back at the workshop, the afternoon sun warmed the oak floorboards. I unlocked the doors and found a delivery note from our largest supplier. A premium batch of reclaimed pine had arrived. I texted the driver to leave it at the back entrance and set about inspecting the boards. Their natural grains and knots promised beautiful tables and cabinets. Anna appeared with a cup of iced tea. "Good news, our clients for the dining table want the pine accent inlay we discussed." She grinned excitement, lighting her features. "Can you show me the boards?" I led her to the stack. "Tell me what you see." She examined the pine, running her fingertips along the rough edges. "Texture grain variation, that piece over there. It has a heartwood streak perfect for that swirling pattern." I nodded. "We'll plane it tomorrow." We worked side by side, measuring and marking our earlier triumph at the hearing, giving energy to our movements. The workshop hummed with new life machines, conversations, the steady rhythm of creation. By early evening, I took a break and checked my phone. A notification from the state bar: Jason's hearing had been postponed due to new evidence. His third ethics complaint had surfaced. I forwarded the notice to James with a satisfied smile. Our evidence had struck again. Anna came over, wiping sawdust from her cheek. "Looks like his walls are crumbling too." I ruffled her hair. Justice has a way of catching up. As dusk fell, we cleared our tools and swept the floor. The soft glow of pendant lights gave the space a cozy warmth. We sat at the demo table, enjoying takeout noodles and talking about tomorrow's schedule, finishing the pine inlay, attending a local artisan fair, and fitting in a movie night. I caught Anna's eye and lifted my glass of ginger ale. "To us, builders of tables and of new beginnings." She clinked her cup to mine. "To us." That night, as I locked up and switched off the lights, I felt a deep satisfaction, not just from another day of progress in the workshop, but from the knowledge that Anna's future was secure. The battle for her custody had affirmed what I always believed: a stable home is built with love and integrity, not legal maneuvering. Walking away from the lit interior into the cool night, I glanced back at the closed doors. Behind them lay our sanctuary, where trust would continue to grow with each handcrafted piece. And as I started my truck and drove home, I carried with me the quiet certainty that no matter what storms lay ahead, we would weather them together. The morning light filtered through the high windows of the workshop as I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The air smelled of fresh pine and varnish, comforting, familiar. I glanced at the calendar tacked to the wall. Today was the community fair, where we'd booked a booth to showcase our work. Anna was already there, arranging a series of small cutting boards and sample inlays on a folding table. Her energy pulsed through the quiet space, and I felt a surge of pride. "Morning," I said, setting down my toolbox. She looked up, eyes shining. Ready for our big debut? I smiled and ruffled her hair. After you. By mid-morning, our booth stood at the edge of the fairgrounds. A simple wooden frame hung over a draped table reading Andrews and Daughter Studios. Sunlight glinted off our polished samples, salvaged heart pine coasters, walnut picture frames, a miniature rocking chair Anna had crafted herself. Neighbors and passers-by paused, admiring our craftsmanship. A man in a crisp shirt stopped to inspect one of the coasters. "These edges are perfect," he said, running a fingertip along the beveled border. "What do you charge for a set of 6? I exchanged a look with Anna. She stepped forward with a confident nod. $75. The man's brow lifted, impressed. "That's reasonable for handmade." He handed over a bill, and I wrapped the coasters in craft paper. As I tucked the package into a recycled burlap bag, I caught a glimpse of Anna exchanging a proud grin with her mother. No, not Sarah, my client's wife, who'd accompanied us. It was our first sale, and Anna beamed. The morning passed in a flurry of conversation and transactions. Families admired the live-edge cutting boards. College students eyed our small drafting desks. Retirees marveled at the dovetailed joinery. Between sales, I took the opportunity to talk to fellow artisans, glass blowers, potters, leather workers, absorbing tips on marketing and studio setup. The community felt alive, supportive. Then, late morning, my phone buzzed with a text from James Sarah's motion to adjust holiday visitation filed. Hearing next week. My chest tightened. The holiday schedule had been a minefield. I'd assumed our custody agreement was settled. Now she wanted more days, more influence. I closed my eyes, tried to steady my breath. When I opened them, Anna stood beside me, her expression concerned. "Everything okay?" I slid my phone into my pocket. "Just some legal adjustments. Nothing we can't handle." I forced a calm smile. "Let's focus on the fair." She nodded, though I could see the worry lingering in her gaze. We continued selling until noon, when a lull settled. I invited Anna to grab lunch, but she shook her head. "I want to help. This has been amazing." Her dedication warmed me. I hated that legal skirmishes threatened her joy. At 1:00 p.m. we took a short break. I handed her a sandwich and sat beside our booth. "You know, I said next week's hearing might mean a new schedule, holidays and school breaks. Are you okay with that?" She chewed thoughtfully, then replied, "If it means more time with my mom, I get it. But I don't want to lose the routine we've built here." Her hesitation showed how torn she remained between us both. I reached across and squeezed her hand. "I promise no matter what, we'll make everything work. The workshop, the fair, our home life, it all adapts." She managed a small smile, and we returned to greeting visitors. By mid-afternoon, a woman approached, clutching a rec center flyer. "I saw your booth in the newspaper. A couple asked me about your live-edge tables." She introduced herself as the new events coordinator for the community center. "We need a custom credenza for our art gallery. Would you two be interested?" My heart leapt. Absolutely. I exchanged business cards with her and sketched quick measurements. Anna listened intently as the coordinator described space dimensions and finish preferences. Within minutes, we had a handshake agreement and a 50% deposit. I exhaled, feeling the high of our first commission. Anna's eyes sparkled disbelief and pride mingling in her face. "We did it," she whispered. "We did." I agreed, unable to hide my grin. As the fair wound down, we packed our unsold pieces and folded the booth tent. The afternoon waned into early evening, and a soft breeze carried the scent of popcorn and lawn chalk across the grounds. We loaded the truck in companionable silence. No need for conversation, The day's success spoke volumes. Back at the workshop, I unloaded the new pine boards for the credenza, stacking them on a workbench. Anna hung the completed coasters and frames on a pegboard display, arranging them by size and grain. The studio felt energized, every surface buzzing with fresh promise. That night, as dusk settled, I sat at my drafting table and reviewed Sarah's new motion. The legal language threatened to shift Anna's holiday schedule by 2 additional weeks spent with her mother. I took a deep breath, recalling Anna's wish for balance. If I fought too hard, I'd risk imposing my will over hers. The line between protecting her and controlling her life felt thin. I put the motion aside and turned my attention to the credenza design. The sketches needed refinement: curved legs, integrated lighting, hidden compartments for art supplies. I reached for my pencil and began adjusting lines. As each curve found the page, the tension in my shoulders eased. Behind me, Anna began sanding one of our demo shelves. The rub of sandpaper was soft music in the otherwise quiet studio. I glanced over my shoulder at her focused expression. "Tomorrow," I said, voice gentle, "we'll finalize the holiday schedule. Together." She paused and met my gaze. Together, she echoed. We worked late, our footsteps the only sounds. At midnight, the workshop's overhead lights hummed as I packed up my pencils. I flicked off each light in turn until only the faint glow of the fountain outside remained visible through the windows. Anna shut down the sander and tucked her tools away. We locked the door and walked to the truck parked beneath the street lamp. I opened the driver's side and Anna climbed in. As I slid behind the wheel, she looked at me. "Dad?" I turned off the engine but kept my hand on the wheel. "Yeah." She hesitated, then said, "Thank you for believing in me, for making space for us both." Her voice cracked with gratitude. My throat tightened. "Always," I whispered and reached over to squeeze her hand. As we drove home beneath the starlit sky, I reflected on the day's twists. Our breakthrough commission, the stubborn legal challenge, Anna's courage in the face of uncertainty. The path forward was still strewn with obstacles, but tonight I knew we had something stronger than any courtroom order, our bond forged through shared passion and honest craftsmanship. Tomorrow would bring new negotiations, new hearings, new designs. But for now the road ahead lay open, lit by the glow of our and her unbreakable resolve. The morning sun glinted off dew-speckled leaves as I parked in front of the courthouse once more. The glass doors swung open, and I led Anna inside, her grip firm on my hand. Today was the hearing on holiday visitation, the last legal hurdle Sarah had thrown at us. I carried her latest motion in one hand and her hand in the other, refusing to let her see how tightly my heart pounded. Inside the familiar atrium, we found James waiting. His calm presence was an anchor. He nodded as we approached. "Ready?" he asked softly. I offered him a quick smile, "As I'll ever be." Anna slipped the folder of her written statement into my breast pocket, a talisman of her stability in the storm. In the courtroom, Sarah sat with her attorney at the plaintiff's table. Her posture was composed, but distant eyes fixed on the wood-paneled walls as if searching for comfort in the grain. I sat with James and Anna, exchanging a reassuring look with my daughter before Judge Hendricks called the session to order. Sarah's attorney rose first. "Your Honor, Ms. Andrews submits that due to Mr. Andrews's growing business obligations, site meetings, woodworking deadlines, she requires extended holiday visitation to maintain parental involvement." He laid out a schedule: 2 additional weeks over winter break, 1 extra during spring recess. These adjustments are in our daughter's best interest," he concluded smoothly. I sensed Anna's grip on my hand tighten. The judge glanced at me, and James stood. "Your Honor, my client's business operates on seasonal cycles, not arbitrary schedules. He is home every evening and devotes weekends entirely to his daughter. Our holiday plan, established in the original custody agreement, balances both parents' roles." James placed a calendar on the lectern marking my studio's busiest months. "This schedule provides the consistency Anna needs. Altering it now would disrupt her routine." I watched as Judge Hendricks studied the calendar, then looked to Anna. "Ms. Carson, would you like to speak?" Anna rose, her voice steady despite the flutter in her chest. "Your Honor, I treasure every moment with my mom, but the workshop has become my second home. I feel safe there, and my dad's presence helps me focus on school and life. I worry that extending visitation during break would pull me away from that stability." Her words hung in the air. I felt pride and relief as the courtroom absorbed her honesty. Sarah's eyes flickered, but she remained silent. The judge deliberated, tapping her pen against her notepad. After a deep breath, she spoke. "I find Mr. Andrews' schedule and living arrangements provide sufficient stability. The existing holiday schedule will remain in effect. Ms. Andrews may petition again in 6 months should circumstances change." The gavel fell, and I exhaled the tension draining from my shoulders. Anna's eyes shone as she climbed down from the witness stand. James offered her a proud smile, and I gathered her into a hug. Outside, Sarah lingered in the courtroom doorway watching us. I caught her eye and nodded once respectfully. She turned and walked away, her silhouette framed by the soft light. Back at the workshop, Anna and I celebrated our victory with shared laughter over chocolate croissants and steaming mugs of coffee. The early afternoon light streamed through the windows, illuminating our scattered tools and fresh pine boards. I caught Anna's gaze and raised my cup. To stability I toasted softly. She clinked mugs with me. To us, she echoed. Our moment of triumph was interrupted by the buzz of my phone. An email from the community center's coordinator detailed their credenza project's requirements: built-in LED lighting, adjustable shelves, and a hidden compartment for artwork. The deposit check reflected a significant increase. Anna let out an excited gasp. "They trust us with their gallery now," she whispered. "This is huge." We spent the afternoon sketching technical details on graph paper, our pens scratching lines of possibility. Dialogue flowed as we solved design challenges together: where to place the wiring channels, how to conceal hinges, which wood stain would complement the gallery's stone walls. Each decision felt like another nail in the foundation of our shared dream. As dusk settled, I realized I hadn't eaten since morning's victory pastries. I suggested we grab dinner at our favorite diner, the one with the red vinyl booths where Anna once proclaimed she'd open her own stand-up show. Over burgers and fries, we talked about marketing strategies, how to photograph our pieces, which hashtags to use, and which local magazines might feature us. Anna's excitement was contagious. Her ideas sparkled with creativity. On the ride home, the neon sign of the diner faded behind us as twilight deepened. Anna rested her head against the window, eyes half-lidded with contentment. I glanced at her and realized the day had closed the book on one battle and begun another, growing our business while guarding our family's peace. The next morning I arrived at the workshop early to retrieve prototype samples. Sunlight filtered across the workbench as I laid out reclaimed oak planks for the credenza. The scent of wood shavings filled the air, grounding me. I heard the familiar hum of the door opening behind me. Anna stepped in, holding 2 steaming mugs of coffee. "Morning?" she said softly, handing me one. I took it gratefully. "Good morning, partner." She grinned. Ready to light up the community center, I nodded. "Let's do it." We spent the day planning sanding and routing channels for the LED strips. Our hands moved in synchronized rhythm, mine guiding the tools, hers smoothing the edges. The workshop felt alive with purpose. Every spark from the router bit, every swirl of sawdust was a testament to our partnership and resilience. Late that afternoon, I paused over the credenza frame and looked at Anna. "I couldn't have done this without you," I said, voice thick. She wiped her hands on her jeans and leaned against the bench. "You taught me everything," she replied. "I'm just following your lead." Her humility warmed me. I put an arm around her and felt the steady beat of her heart against mine. "We're building something that will outlast all this," I said, thinking of our trials and triumphs, a legacy of truth and craftsmanship. She smiled up at me, and in that moment I knew she believed it too. Outside, the evening sky blazed in hues of rose and gold, as if celebrating our journey. I switched off the main power, flooding the room with the glow of the fountain beyond the windows. Together, father and daughter, we locked the workshop door and stepped into the promise of tomorrow. By midweek, the world outside our workshop began to shift in ways I never expected. I arrived that morning to find a stack of newspapers left on the front porch, the headline screaming, "Local attorney and wife accused of conspiracy, future in jeopardy." I flipped through the pages, full accounts of Jason's ethics review, Sarah's dismissed restraining order, and hints of possible perjury charges. The ink felt cold on my fingertips, but I knew this story wasn't about me, or maybe somehow it still was. I set the papers down on the workbench just as Anna appeared, her brow furrowed. "Dad, everyone's talking about it," she said quietly, motioning to the front window where neighbors paused outside reading the same headlines. She tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "They all look surprised to see us here." I met her eyes. "Let them talk," I said, though my voice wavered. "We've built our life on truth. Their gossip can't change that." She nodded, but the worry in her eyes told me she still felt the tremors of her mother's scandal. "I'm proud of what we've done, Dad. But what if clients think our family is messy?" Before I could answer, the bell over the door jingled. A man in a crisp suit strode in, eyes bright with purpose. "Mr. Andrews?" he asked, extending a business card. "I'm Kyle Robbins from the City Gazette. I covered the courthouse hearings and would love to do a story on your father-daughter studio, how you've bounced back after personal turmoil." My heart thumped. A newspaper feature could be a double-edged sword, publicity for our business, but also a spotlight on our family's scars. Yet Kyle's expression was earnest, not sensational. "I won't pretend this is easy," I said, holding out a hand. "But if you want the real story, our story, I'll share it." He shook my hand, then turned to Anna. "And you must be the other half of the team." She offered a shy smile. "Nice to meet you." He pulled out a small recorder. "May I ask, how has all this drama affected your work together?" Anna's straightened voice steady. "It's actually strengthened us. My dad built our business on trust and quality. When the courtroom drama hit, people saw the truth, and they responded by supporting us. I added, this workshop has been our sanctuary. While others were tearing each other down, we focused on building something real." He nodded, scribbling notes. "Thank you. I think your perspective will mean something to the readers." After he left, Anna and I exchanged a look. "You think this will help?" she asked. I ran a hand through my hair. "If we're honest, yes. People respect authenticity. That afternoon I dove into the credenza build, installing the LED channels with careful precision. Anna measured the shelf spacing for art storage. Each moment spent crafting our commission was a refuge from the swirling headlines. Still, every customer who entered paused near the workshop door, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and sympathy. I greeted them with the same warm professionalism, determined that our skill, not our scandal, would define us. As dusk settled, I closed the shop and walked outside. Anna followed, arms wrapped around her sketchbook. I could see her uncertainty fading under the lavender sky. "Dad," she began. "Mr. Robbins said the article will run tomorrow. He promised a positive angle. But," she looked down at the gravel, "I'm scared." I put an arm around her shoulders and guided her toward the porch. "I know." I paused, choosing my words. When I was blindsided by betrayal, I thought my world had ended. But I found hope in building again with you beside me. "This article won't change who we are." She leaned into me. "Okay." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing through every twist of our journey. The midnight, recording the asset freeze, the courtroom confrontations, and now the public reckoning. I thought of Sarah, wherever she was, and wondered if she'd landed on her feet, or if the ruin was complete. But the dawn belonged to us. The next morning I brewed coffee and placed 3 copies of the Gazette on the breakfast table. Anna joined me, pale light filtering through the blinds. I handed her the middle paper. The headline read, "Betrayed but Unbroken, How a Father-Daughter Duo Transformed Heartache into Handcrafted Hope." She exhaled, tracing the words with her fingertip. "That's beautiful." I scanned the article. Kyle's narrative wove our personal ordeal into the story of the studio's resilience. There were quotes from Anna about the healing power of creation, my reflections on integrity, and even a sidebar showcasing our fair and gallery commission. Readers praised our honesty. Comments called for support of local artisans. Tears pricked my eyes. "We did it," I whispered. Anna nodded, eyes shining. "They get it." That morning we arrived at the workshop to find a line of customers at the door. Neighbors who'd read the story, newcomers eager to commission custom pieces. The Gazette's circulation had ignited a wave of interest. I glanced at Anna, and we shared a grin that spoke volumes. As the day unfolded, I balanced meetings with measuring and guiding Anna as she greeted clients and took notes. Our rhythm was seamless. She brought empathy and fresh ideas. I brought experience and steady hands. Every handshake, every consultation, and every plan we made felt charged with purpose. Late in the afternoon, a knock sounded on the door. It was Marcus, my accountant, clipboard in hand. "Michael, the headline's bringing more customers than we forecasted. I've adjusted projections. We'll need to expand staff soon." His grin was contagious. "Congratulations." I clasped his shoulder. "Thank you. I couldn't have done this without you and without Anna." He nodded at her, smiling kindly. "You two are quite the team." When Marcus left, I turned to Anna, who was stacking brochures on a display rack. "You know," I said, voice soft, "this isn't just about business. It's about turning pain into purpose." She paused and looked up. "And proving that honesty outlasts deceit." I wrapped an arm around her, and we watched the light fade over the workshop's rows of wood and tools. The fountain's water caught the last rays, sparkling like the endless possibilities ahead. That night, as we locked up and walked to our truck, Anna slipped her hand into mine. "Dad," she said, "thank you for standing up for us no matter what." I squeezed her hand. Always, sweetheart. We climbed into the truck and drove away, the Gazette's front page reflecting in the rearview mirror. Ahead of us stretched a path built on truth, craftsmanship, and the unbreakable bond between a father and his daughter. And for the first time since that silver Lexus appeared, I felt the road was ours to chart together, unafraid of whatever news tomorrow might bring. As autumn deepened, the air grew crisp, and I felt the echoes of our journey in every falling leaf. When I arrived at the workshop that morning, the sunlight carved long shadows across the floorboards, and I noticed Anna already busy at the drafting table. Her hair was pulled back to keep wood shavings out of her eyes, and she looked up with a determined smile. "Good morning, Dad," she said, handing me a steaming mug of coffee. "Big day today?" I took a sip and felt gratitude fill me. "You're up early." She shrugged excitement in her posture. "Our gallery installation is this afternoon. I want to double-check the lighting layout." I nodded, proud of her attention to detail. The credenza commission for the community center's art gallery had grown into a centerpiece, a stately piece with hidden LED accents and lift-top storage for rotating exhibits. Today we'd oversee the final install. We loaded the truck together, strapping the finished credenza and wrapping the LED components in blankets to protect them during transit. The drive to the gallery was quiet, punctuated by the hum of city traffic. Anna sat beside me, sketchbook open on her lap, reviewing last-minute adjustments. "Remember, Dad," she said, "we need to ensure the power connections are accessible but concealed." I smiled at her meticulous mind. "Absolutely." At the gallery, the executive director, Ms. Ramirez, greeted us with warm enthusiasm. "The space looks incredible," she said, guiding us through vaulted ceilings and pristine white walls. We chose a sunlit alcove where the credenza would sit beneath a large window, the wood grain glowing in the afternoon light. Unloading the piece, I felt a familiar surge of pride. This was more than furniture. It was a manifestation of resilience, a testament to how trials could be transformed into craftsmanship. While I secured the base to the floor anchors, Anna measured the height for the LED strips. She powered them on, and a soft glow traced the credenza's edges, casting ambient light that would highlight the artworks above. Ms. Ramirez watched us with admiration. "This is exactly what we envisioned," she said. "You've given the gallery both function and warmth." I exchanged a glance with Anna. Her cheeks flushed with pride. "Thank you," I replied. "We're honored to contribute." As we stood back to survey our work, a reporter from the City Gazette entered, camera in hand. It was Kyle Robbins, the same journalist who'd featured our story months earlier. He snapped photos, then approached me with his recorder. "Mr. Andrews, do you have a moment for a few comments?" I hesitated. Publicity had its benefits, but I'd hoped to let the credenza speak for itself. Yet I owed transparency. "Of course," I said, lowering my voice. He asked about the significance of this commission. I glanced at Anna, who nodded encouragement. "This installation represents the culmination of our journey," I began. "What began as rebuilding our personal lives has become an opportunity to enrich our community. Every piece we craft carries our story, the story of trust, perseverance, and family. We hope it inspires others to find beauty in rebuilding." Kyle's camera flashed, capturing Anna's radiant smile beside me. When he left, Ms. Ramirez shook my hand. "Expect a feature in next month's design journal," she said. Back at the workshop that evening, I reflected on the day's successes and on the journey that had brought us here. We unpacked the truck and slid the credenza into its storage area ready for the next client's specifications. Anna cleaned the tools at the bench, still humming with satisfaction. Over dinner at home, we shared a quiet meal of pasta and salad, Anna recounting every detail of the evening's install. I listened, delighting in her enthusiasm. Then she set her fork down, expression turning serious. "Dad, I've been offered an opportunity." My heart skipped. "What's that?" She took a breath. "My professor from college reached out. She's curating a student design showcase next spring and asked if I'd submit our studio's concept for sustainable materials." Her eyes shone with anticipation. "She wants to feature our father-daughter partnership, our use of reclaimed wood, and community focus. It's in New York." Silence spread between us, thick with possibility. A showcase in New York could elevate our studio to national prominence, but it would also mean a whirlwind of travel and exposure. I met her gaze, pride swelling in my chest. "That's incredible," I said, voice thick with emotion. "You deserve it." Anna hesitated, doubt flickering in her eyes. "But would you come with me?" I reached across the table and took her hand. I wouldn't miss it for the world. A radiant smile lit her face, and in that moment I realized how far we'd come from that night I'd first pressed record on Sarah's conspiracy to now standing on the brink of a new chapter, one defined not by betrayal, but by possibility. The following weeks whirred by in a blend of workshop deadlines and New York preparations. We crafted a prototype coffee table with a honeycomb support structure from reclaimed maple, engineered to show both form and function. We documented our process with photos and video, honing our presentation for the showcase. Legal matters with Sarah had settled into a quiet equilibrium. Custody remained unchanged, and her requests for additional visitation waned as she recognized our daughter's allegiance. The silence between us was no longer contentious, it was acceptance. When departure day arrived, I loaded our luggage alongside our portfolio into the truck. Anna slipped promotional brochures and design samples into her backpack, eyes bright with excitement and nervousness. I wrapped a protective arm around her. "Ready?" I asked. She nodded, voice steady. "Ready." We flew to New York and arrived in a city that pulsed with creative energy. The showcase venue was a sunlit loft overlooking the skyline, its walls lined with student designs. Our table sat center stage, the honeycomb base gleamed under spotlights, the reclaimed wood's grain echoing stories of past lives. Anna stood beside me, greeting visitors as I handled logistics with poised efficiency. Our combined talents shone, drawing attention from press buyers and fellow designers. When the exhibit opened, a crowd gathered. I watched Anna explain our process, her confidence blossoming under the city lights. People marveled at our story, the father who rebuilt his life through wood, and the daughter who found strength in shared purpose. An editor from a major design magazine approached us, business card in hand. "Your work is inspiring," she said. "We'd love to include you in our spring issue." Anna's grin was unstoppable. I felt tears prick my eyes. "Thank you," I said, voice thick. That evening we stood on a rooftop terrace, the city's glow stretching beneath us. Anna leaned against the railing, eyes reflecting neon lights. "Dad, I couldn't have done this without you," she said. I wrapped an arm around her, and I wouldn't have it any other way. The wind carried a soft promise. Our journey from heartbreak to hope had taken us beyond the small workshop to the beating heart of the design world. But no matter how far we traveled, home would always be where we built together a place forged by love, guided by integrity, and strengthened by every creative endeavor we shared. The story that began with betrayal had evolved into one of triumph. And this rooftop night in New York was its most brilliant chapter yet. The flight home carried a quiet contentment I hadn't felt in years. As we descended through the morning clouds, I watched Anna's face light up at the sight of familiar fields and rooftops passing beneath the wings. We'd left behind New York's glittering skyline, a place that had embraced our story, and now we returned to the workshop where it had all begun. The small plane touched down with a gentle thud, and I felt the weight of every lesson, every trial settle into a calm resolve. Driving through our town, the streets looked both unchanged and utterly different. I pointed out landmarks to Anna, her first school, the diner, where we'd celebrated victories both small and large, and she waved at neighbors who by now recognized her as the girl who worked with her dad. Each nod and smile reminded me how far we'd come from those dark days when betrayal threatened to shatter us. That afternoon we unlocked the workshop doors together. The scent of pine and varnish welcomed us like an embrace. Tools gleamed in their racks, unfinished prototypes waited on workbenches, and 2 new framed articles hung proudly on the corkboard, one from the City Gazette, the other from the Design magazine in New York. Our gallery credenza gleamed under the overhead lights, a testament to our shared vision. Anna set down her suitcase and ran her fingers along the edge of our honeycomb coffee table prototype. "It's like coming home," she said softly. "I miss this place." I nodded, the lump in my throat reminding me how precious home had become. "Me too," I said. "Let's get back to work." Over the next week we dove into a new commission, a custom bookcase for a local writer's retreat, complete with a hidden compartment for manuscripts. As I routed channels for secret panels, Anna marked measurements with precision and offered design suggestions that echoed her growing confidence. Our synergy was seamless. Father's experience, daughter's fresh perspective melding into creations that held both heart and craft. One evening, as I tightened the last hinge on the bookcase door, Sarah's voice caught me by surprise. I turned to see her silhouette in the doorway, soft lamplight haloing her. She held a small box, her expression tentative. She began, her voice unsteady. "I wanted to see the studio one last time." She stepped inside, eyes sweeping across sawdust-dusted benches and wall-to-wall timber. "It's beautiful, what you two have built." I set down my tools, heart fluttering with emotions I'd long kept in check. Anger, sorrow, curiosity. Anna froze, chisel in hand, eyes wide. I motioned gently for her to finish sanding her panel before joining us. Sarah approached the bookcase and opened the hidden compartment, her fingers brushing the smooth pine. She withdrew the small box she'd carried. "I found this in your workshop months ago," she said, voice thick. "I forgot to return it." She held it out to me. Inside lay a silver locket engraved with our wedding date, once a gift I'd given her. Her green eyes shone with unshed tears. "I'm sorry for everything I did, Michael, for the betrayal, the lies dragging Anna into it." Time seemed to still. Anna set her chisel down and joined us, standing beside me. I closed the bookcase door and faced Sarah, the locket's weight heavy in my hand. "I won't pretend it wasn't devastating," I said, voice low. "You broke our trust. But this place, you and Anna, you've shown me what real strength is." I paused, meeting Sarah's remorseful gaze. "I'm not the man I was when I walked out that night. I've rebuilt my world around honesty and love." Tears slipped down Sarah's cheeks. She pressed the locket into my palm. "I don't expect your forgiveness, but I had to acknowledge what I lost, what we lost." Anna stepped forward, voice gentle but firm. "Mom, there's a place for you in our lives, but not in our studio anymore. We need boundaries." Sarah nodded, accepting the bittersweet truth. "I understand. Thank you for showing me what integrity looks like." Sarah left quietly, closing the door behind her. I stood between the open bookcase and the wall of tools, the locket heavy in my palm. Anna slipped an arm around my waist. "Dad," she whispered, "I'm proud of you." I pressed the locket into her hand. "Keep this safe," I said. "It's a reminder of the past, but also a symbol of where we are now." Anna looked up, tears shining in her eyes. "We'll always have our bond, no locket needed." In the days that followed, we returned to our rhythm-shaping wood, refining designs, greeting clients who brought dreams for us to realize. The workshop echoed with the hum of planers, the scrape of chisels, and the laughter of a father and daughter who had turned heartbreak into purpose. Weeks later, I stood outside at dusk, watching Anna bring our finished bookcase to the owner's home. Its concealed compartments would safeguard stories yet to be written. As I walked back to the workshop, I felt a sense of completion, and yet a new beginning. Inside, I turned on the fountain's soft cascade and ran a hand along the polished surface of our gallery credenza. Moonlight filtered through the windows, casting silver streaks across the wood grain. I closed my eyes and inhaled the familiar scent of pine and promise. Our journey had begun in betrayal, unraveling everything I held dear. But it had led us here to a place defined by choice. We chose honesty over falsehood, creation over destruction, family over solitude. And in doing so, we built more than tables and cabinets. We built a legacy of resilience, integrity, and love that would endure far beyond any bankruptcy of trust. As I shut off the lights and locked the workshop door, I carried the quiet certainty that our future would be forged by the same steady hands and open hearts that had guided us through every twist and turn. The locket sat on my nightstand, a memoir of past pain and the enduring strength of a father's love, a daughter's courage, and the unbreakable bond between them. The road ahead stretched wide and uncharted, but for the first time in years, I welcomed it without fear, ready to build whatever came next.